Hi, everybody. So we're back today for part 2 of our album in a box for Ireland Forever. We're going to start with the hinges, then we're going to work on the 7 pages, and then we'll work on the flips and flaps on those 7 pages. So I posted in my announcement yesterday the cutting guide. So if you're looking for it, that's where you can find it. Oh, good, Myrna. I'm glad you're excited. So am I. I really like this project, actually. So let's get going so I don't take up too much of your afternoon on a Friday. Here's where we ended. We just had our box. We're going to be putting our hinges in this area here. So I'm just going to move the box out of our way. And hi, Juliana. Nice that you could join us today. So here we go. Let's get this started. Put the box to one side. Oh yes, and this is where we're headed. If you're new just this week, this is what we are actually creating. It's the album in a box, 7 pages with flips and flaps. I'm not going to go through each one because I did that in the walkthrough, but this is what we are creating today. So hope you enjoy it. All right. So our hinge piece, I asked you to cut. Hi, Brenda. I asked you to cut a piece that is 6 1/4 by 10. And we're going to do some scoring on that piece. So let me just get it in the scoreboard here. Even though I've already scored it, I'll walk through it with you. So this is a really easy hinge system to make because it's just 1/2 inches. Because I didn't over decorate the pages, 1/2 inch gussets are more than enough for us today. So we're going to score at 1/2. Oh, and I should tell you, if you purchased, maybe I'll use this instead today. If you purchased the McGill flower shaping tools, hi Debbie, so nice that you could join us. They work amazing to use as a score tool. Just remember, don't be too heavy-handed. And I really like using a stylus. That's my go-to. So we're going to score at 1/2, 1, 1 1/2, 2, 2 1/2, 3, 3 1/2, 4, 4 1/2, 5, 5 1/2, 6, 6 1/2, 7, 7 1/2, 8, 8 1/2, 9, and 9 1/2. And that's the easiest scoring I think I've ever done because they're all just 1/2 inch score lines. So we're going to do some folding on those score lines. Get my burnishing tool out here. You see my desk is nice and clean. Let's see how long I keep it clean. So that is our first hinge. And we're just going to fold on all our hinges. So the next one is our gusset. So we're not going to fold that, but we're going to fold. So go 2 fold lines over or score lines over and pinch that one up. And that will make your next hinge. And then just push it back down on itself. And then again, so 1, 2. So this is the one we're going to make into a mountain if you want to think of it like that. And there's our third hinge. So we're just going to make all our hinges, get them used to where we want them to be before we add our adhesive. So 1, 2. So this is the one we're going to push up and make a mountain. Like so. And then go 1 score line, 2 score lines, and that's the one we want to make into a mountain. And this would work regardless of what your gusset width is. And then 1, 2, it becomes another mountain. And then the last one, and I sometimes just turn it over and just fold on it. and then I make it the mountain. So there is your last one. So we have 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I counted correctly. Yay for me. Hi, Sandy. So glad you could join me again today. So I am using the art glitter glue that Tammy sells in the store to actually create my hinges. This is only the second time I've used glue, so I am a novice at this, but it does make things go a lot faster. And I am noticing that, you know what, they hold together just as nicely as using the dry adhesive. Let me get a baby wipe just in case. So we're just adding adhesive, and I'll show you in a second. I'll give this one a good burnish. So this is the one on the end. That's why it just got folded over on itself. So there is our first hinge. So we're going to turn it back over because we're working on the wrong side. Now remember the one we made into a mountain? So this one. So that's where we're putting the glue. We're putting the glue in. On this side, I would call that the valley. So we just need to put glue on one side of it. And you don't need to be crazy with the glue. You just need to be, you know, get good coverage. And like I say, this is only the second time I am using glue instead of dry adhesive. Big step for me. Took me a long time to believe that the glue would be as good as the dry adhesive. And just work your hinge. The trick here is to burnish well. That is the key. Even when I was using the dry adhesive, I would say burnish those hinges well. So we're putting glue on one side of our valley. Doesn't matter which side, whichever one works for you. I seem to be putting it on the one that's furthest away from me. And then I like to, when I fold it over, I just like to make sure that everything is still nice and square on the left and right hand side. Because that's how you get your hinge system to be square. And then when you're adding your pages to it a little later, they stay nice and square. And of course, putting it in the right spot in the book also helps to keep things. Just working it. Get that little message out of there that's on my screen. You guys can't see it, but it was kind of interfering with what I was seeing. Now, I'm not going to be putting banners up with the measurements today. And the reason for that is I had some of my ladies or friends that were watching last week say it was interfering with what they could see. So I'll say again, I did post, I should say, the cutting guide in the post yesterday that said I was going live today in Country Craft Creations. I will make sure that on my YouTube channel, I give you a link to where you can find those measurements. And if you are a member of the Scrapbookers of Country Craft Creations, I will actually put it in the guide section. I think I'm in the guide section 19, where I've been posting all of these live tutorials to make them easier for you to find. So there we go again. I think this is number 5. And like I said, the more you work these hinges, the better it is. Because that is what's turning your pages. You're going to adhere to them. And then the next one. So remember, I'm putting it on the back side in what now is the valley. And I'm just going to fold over. And like I say, I believe it is a little faster using glue. Maybe not a lot faster, but this feels like it's faster. And they're just as strong as they are when you use, now I'm doing the last one, so I'm putting the glue on that last valley. Hi RJ, how are you today? So glad so many could join me today because it's Friday. I know a lot of people work Friday midday, but this is the time that worked best for me this week instead of a Saturday. Have a commitment tomorrow, so like I say, this is what worked better. So there we are. There are our 7 hinges. Just kind of working them both ways, giving them a good burnish. There we go. So stand them up so they're nice. Just want to look at this one for a second. Yeah, no, it's good. All right, so let's bring our book back in, or our box back in. It's not a book this time. And I'm just going to lay the lid of it up there. So this is where the hinges are going to go. And the hinges, like I said before, they measure 6 1/4. And this base is 6 1/2. So I've given 1/4 of an inch from side to side. And from bottom to top, I guess is how I'm going to say this right now, or front to back, it measures 4 1/2. And our hinge itself measures, let me get in here, 3 1/4. So you could have made your box a little smaller if you wanted to. I decided not to because I just thought I liked it the way I made it. So basically what you're going to want is you're going to want a probably about 3/4 of an inch on either side. Now, one thing I didn't do, which I do need to do, is we need to cover this piece of the book. And I don't believe I added that into the cutting guide. So we are going to do that right now together. So I said it's 6 1/2 by 4 1/2. So I am going to cut a piece of cardstock that measures, I believe, 4 3/8 by 6 3/8. So give me a second just to get a piece out. See, you get to see what it's like when it's live. Hopefully, nope. Trying to save my artisan. Not today. So I'm just gonna do this off screen. So we're cutting a piece that's 4 3/8 by 6 3/8. And this is just an added little step. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I prefer that finished look. And then we're going to put our hinge system on top of it. So like I said before, this piece, which I will add into my description, is 4 3/8 by 6 3/8. And that's what happens when you do them live. And that is okay. You know what, Sandy? I like the challenge. and I think it's okay. And I have a heck of a time with uploading to YouTube my recorded tutorials, and this goes so much faster. Yes, they still take a while to upload, but it just is so much nicer. All right, so there is our cover page or piece. And then, like I say, we are going to add our hinge system in here. And you probably got about 1/8 of an inch on the left and right hand side, and about 3/4 of an inch front to back. Thank you, Sandy. There was a learning curve involved with it, but now I feel quite comfortable doing them. So we're putting adhesive on each of the back side of our gussets. So on the wrong side, on what became the gusset, we're just adding some of our glue. All right. I can remove that, Tanya. Just give me 1 second. How's that? Is that better? Thank you, Tanya, for mentioning that to me. See, Tanya comes on when we do our lives just to make sure that if something's gone sideways or if we don't see a question, maybe she'll see it and then she can say to me, Bonnie, could you answer that? And sometimes Tanya might already know the answer. So with the liquid glue, what I've discovered, it gives you a little bit of wiggle room. And what it's allowing me to do is just have that little bit of time to be happy with how I've put my hinge system in. And the most important thing about this hinge system is that you're not impeding on the left and right flaps. And there's my head in the shot. I apologize for that. So hopefully it's out. Hi, Melissa from Washington State. You're my neighbor in a roundabout way. Where do you live in Washington State, Melissa? So we're going to burnish all of those gussets because that's what's going to hold the hinge system in to our project. And voila. And then we're just going to go back the other way. Oh, Tacoma. So you're on the other side of the coastal mountains. So I live in the Okanagan, but only I live in Canada. But I've said that before. And my friends that follow me all know that. And so there we go. There is our 7 hinges now in our box. Okay, Tanya, thank you. Enjoy getting that pizza. All right, so we're going to move on to our base pages. So we're just going to move this out of our way. Road trip, yes, when all this is over. When all this is over, yes. So you need 7 pieces of cardstock that are cut at 6 1/4 by 8 1/2. And what I did on each one of them is I scored them with my score tool at 4 1/4 on the 8 1/2 inch side. So it's a little blurry. Oh, okay, good. Okay, so it's with the 8 1/2 inch side along the top, score at 4 1/4. Sounds good, Tanya. Thank you. So we scored each one at 4 1/4. So I'll give you a couple seconds. Or maybe I should ask, is anybody working with me or are you just watching? because I'm going to start folding on my score lines to create my pages. Number 2 and number 3. You're working with me, Myrna? Okay, so I'll try to keep a good pace here. Watching and taking notes? Awesome, Julianne. Hope I'm saying your name right. I have a terrible time with names. There you go, Tanya. And the last one. So we should have 7 of these pages. So I'll just give you a second. I'm going to bring the book back in, or the album back in. I always call it a book. We're going to turn it in this orientation to do our next step. Get things out of our way. I need my burnishing tool. Definitely going to need that. So I like to start with the last hinge, or the back of the book. Yes, they will also stay recorded, Tanya. So if you've followed me in, thanks, Brenda. Well, I hope you'll enjoy it. I hope you'll give it a try. So if you followed me before, you know that I make my hinge system and my pages into my book similar to the way Tammy makes hers. So all I do to start with is I take my first page, I just butt it up to the edge of the hinge, and I see that when I put my hinge in, I'm a little further to one side than the other, but that's going to be okay. It's not the end of the world. It is a handmade item. All right, so I'm going to lift this up. So I'm lifting up my page, the front of it, holding it in place, pushing my hinge back, getting my adhesive, and I'm going to add adhesive to this side, so the back side. I'll tell you why I call it the back side in a second. And then I gently lay it down on the page, making sure that the hinge isn't overhanging at the top, which I'm going to call this right now, or the bottom. Hi, Lillian. So glad you could come and join me today. And then give it a good burnish. And then you just want to flip it the other way to make sure if there's any glue, get rid of it. And burnish it on this side. There we go. And then before I glue down the front, because remember, this is the front of the book, even though it's left to right now, I like to fold it just like the page is going to fold, just to make sure that I don't need to trim anything off this edge that it would be impeding that folding. Now, because I don't have any pockets on this page, thanks, Wendy, I'm going to be adding adhesive along I'm calling this the top, but in the other orientation, it's the left and right, and the bottom. Then I'm adding adhesive to the front side of my hinge. And then I'm just going to fold it over. And I like to kind of push out from this top edge of the page. Now remember, in a normal album, you're going to be turning your pages left to right. But remember, because our album, just give me a second here to get my burnishing all done. A little bit of glue there. Give it a good burnish. So just turning it back into its correct orientation. This is my last page of my album. Okay, this is the front of the book or the front of the album. This is the back of the album, because our pages are going to flip sort of like a Rolodex. I guess that would be a good description of how these pages are turning. So let's get page 2 in here. And because I'm notorious to need a white piece of paper under my work, I'm just going to get it ready. So again, we're just going to repeat what we did for the first page. I'm laying my page in my book. What you really want to be focusing on is that here on the, I'm going to call it my right-hand side, that my pages are nice and square. That one isn't like this, because that's not what you want. So let me start again, since I really skewed it there. And just like so, and like so. And I have to just touch it a bit. And if I had this paper underneath, I think you guys could see what I'm talking about. So let's just line this up like so. Fold it over. And what I'm not happy with is it's hanging over, and I know it's going to be hard to see, and I can't lift it up to show it to you any closer. So I'm just going and giving it a slight, and I'm happy with that. All right, so let's hold it in place. Turn it over. So we have the back of the hinge. Add our adhesive to the back side of our hinge. And then fold our hinge down. You know what, Dawn? The idea came about when Tammy and I were talking. I said I wanted to do an album in a box, but I didn't want to do just the regular, albums that you see out there in a box. And she said, well, why don't you try? And this is how I interpreted what she said to me that day. Have no idea if this was the direction she thought I was headed in, but I love how it turned out. And because I wanted to showcase the Ireland Forever paper, and I really wanted to focus on just the history, the heritage, more on Ireland than on St. Paddy's Day. That's how this particular project all came to where we are today. Like I say, I love how the project turned out. I love the paper. So again, I'm using Tammy's Ireland Forever paper. It's exclusive to CCC. It's gorgeous. If you haven't got your hands on it, it is in the store. And it's just, the feel of this paper is unbelievable. That's all I can say about it. You've got to get some of Tammy's paper just to feel it. It's like silk. That's how I describe it. So again, we're working on hinge 3 or page 3 of our book, our box album. And again, I'm folding it over, giving it a good burnish. Overdid the glue. What else is new? Good burnish. Fold it back. There's a case where a little too much glue came out. Again. Okay. And remember to check. I forgot to check on this one. Again, some glue on either side. Glue on the hinge, and I know it's hard to see. Again, burnish. You know what? They just keep getting better, Debbie. They just keep getting better. That What's Cooking paper, I love it. And I have a project on the go for that paper. It's going to be an album, but a little twist to it. So I'm hoping when I get it finished, you will like it. So I guess I'm like Sally today. I have a secret. Yes, Tanya, it's just getting better and better. Because when you think, how's she going to come up with any more ideas? And she's got another one. So again, whoops, pushed it too far. So let's start this again. So my husband knows I'm doing a live today. So hopefully, because I'm hearing a noise outside and I'm hoping you guys don't hear that. Okay, I'm happy with that. Oh, you know what? That's not my husband. That is something completely else. That would be that would be our vacuuming system. So just let me pause it. There we go. Because it's going to come here. I have the doors close to my /office craft room, and so remember, we're only putting adhesive on the back side of our hinge. Love her. Actually, we named her 7. It's an inside joke. My husband's a big Star Trek follower, and I had called it Borg, and he said, no, it's 7. So 7 it is. Okay, we want to run a little adhesive along the top and the bottom and along the hinge. And then fold over. Do you realize we've got page 4 in here already? How's the pace, Myrna? Yes, exactly, Sandy. 7 of 9. And it all came from when we first got it. I was calling it Borg. And I know it's not assimilating anything, but it is. It was assimilating my house to how it needed to vacuum it every day. And I was loving it. We had that conversation last week when it happened to start up, which it does at this time of day. So Debbie, is it the album in the box you're loving, or is it an automated vacuum system? There are no cards that pull out from the left or right side of the give me a second here, Myrna, so I can just adhere this part of the hinge, and then I'm going to turn the book orientation. So the reason I didn't put any pullouts on the left or right side is we are quite limited with our space. So you can't have anything sticking out. That would be the problem with leaving either the left or right side open for an insert. You just don't have the space with the sides of the box. So hopefully that makes sense as to why I'm just going ahead, gluing everything shut, because I know that there isn't any room to put an insert. I do some shallow pockets. Okay, Tanya, thank you. So here we go. Let's give this a good burnish. Making sure that nothing moved. Okay, and we're on to page 6. Going like gangbusters here. All right, here's page 6. I think this is the most pages I've ever put into a project. And that's why I kept the pages simple. And I actually repeat the page styles. So we weren't recreating the wheel completely on every page. And we really didn't need to. You know, if you've got some old recipes of, let's say, your grandma's, they would look amazing in something like this. Just an idea. Hi, Danielle. So glad you could join us. Hopefully that's not going to cause me a problem. Nope, I'm good with that. What am I talking about? I see just a little overhang down here, but I'm okay with it. So we're going to add our adhesive and along the hinge and fold it over. Burnish. Okay, and our last page going into our box. Again, line it up left to right. Make sure that we're happy. And I am. No, I'm not. Give me a second here. Okay. So I'm going to show you guys something. If you notice on this page, I have a lot of space here as compared to over here. It's going to be fine because when we put our pattern paper on and we've got it all decorated, never even going to see that. And I could be a little closer here, so I'm going to just redo that. So I was an awfully long ways away. Let's see if that changes anything. Just, there we go. Changed it a little bit, so that's a little better. So it's always a case of paying attention, taking time putting your pages in. I can't stress that enough. If you take your time on this part of the project, it's going to help with the rest of the project. Okay, so that was glue on the back side of the hinge. Burnish. And then front. So a little adhesive on the top and right that I'm calling it right now. It's actually the left and right side, and along the hinge. Fold over. And there are the 7 pages. Whoops. That's why you want to double check both sides. Here are the 7 pages in. I'm going to give them all a good burnish. So just let me get this piece of paper out of our way. So let's give them a good burnish. Nothing is catching, which is a good thing. And there we go. Our pages are in our box album. And remember, the orientation is this way. So as we're adding flips and flaps, keep that in mind, that our orientation is from the front to the back of the box. Okay, so let's move on and get started with what we need for page 1. So for page 1, we need, so I'm just going to move this aside for a second, a couple of pieces of cardstock. So we need 2 pieces of cardstock, and they measure, I'm just going to leave my little note up there for a second. They measure 4 1/8 by 6 5/8. And you're going, oh my goodness, we're doing 1/8 of a measurement. And the reason we're doing 1/8 of a measurement is, remember I said our page is 4 1/4. We need our flips and flaps to be 1/8 of an inch shorter, so they're not going to catch as we fold the pages forward. So that's why I've gone down 1/8 of an inch. Now you could go to 1/4 of an inch, but I think that's too much. And it's really easy to do your 1/8 of an inch. So by the time we're done this today, hopefully everybody will have 1/8. So 1/8 of an inch, so 4 1/8 is the little tick mark on the scoreboard just past the 4. And the 6 5/8, let's turn it this way so you get a clear, is the little tick mark that's just past 6 1/2. So that's 6 5/8. Now I did round my corners. I used the 3/8 on my wonderful We Are Memory Keepers crocodile. And Tammy sometimes has those in the store as well. I use 3/8. That's often my go-to. And then on the 6 5/8 side, I scored at 1/2 on both of them. So let's fold on our score lines. Give it a good burnish. We are going to miter our tabs. And the reason we're mitering our tabs is we don't want anything to be overhanging. So I'm just slight miter, as I did that one off camera and went, no, you're supposed to be in the camera shot. So I'll just do this one so you can see it. There we go. Give them another burnish. Bring our book back in. Album, box, whatever we want to call it. Now, what we want to do is we want to keep these to the top of our page. And it doesn't matter which one you start with first, whether you start with the one on the left-hand side or the one on the right-hand side. I'm going to work on my left-hand side first. So add adhesive to the 1/2 inch tabs. We're adding it to the outside of that 1/2 inch tab. So this to me is the outside of the 1/2 inch tab. This here is the inside of the 1/2 inch tab. So what I'm doing is I'm lining it up at the top of the page. I'm happy with that. I think I'm happy with that. A little, there we go. And then burnish. Okay, and then we're just going to repeat it in the other direction, like so. Now, I did say last week, I did not use any magnets when I was creating this album in a box, because I was finding that everything was being held down quite nicely by the flips and the flaps. And we'll just put our adhesive on the outside of this 1/2 inch tab. And again, we're going to keep it to the top of the page. My white piece of paper helps me see where that top of the page is. And then I just want to make sure that everything is nice and square, and it is. And then I'll give it a good burnish. And that's as easy as page 1 flips and flaps are. There you go. Like I said, I kept the page design simple because we only have a 1/2 inch gusset. And by keeping the flips and the flaps to the top of the page, we don't have anything impeding down here at the hinge. So we are going to flip to the back of page 2. Now remember, when you're decorating, this is the orientation you're going to want to have. You're going to want to have everything. Just going to move my iPad so I can see what you're saying and see or have my box in the view. Okay, so we're going to work on the back of page 2. Hopefully that's not too much in the shot. Maybe we'll move it over here and see if that's better. Okay, so the back of page 2, just want to see where I'm at. It is a single flap. And this flap measures 4 5/8 by 6 1/4. So the 5/8 is the line past the 4 1/2. So it's a little tick past the 4 1/2. And of course, 6 1/4 is just that, 6 1/4. And then on the 4 5/8 side, you are going to score at 1/2. Oh, leave that there for you guys. And then I'm folding on that score line, giving it a good burnish. Going to do a little miter. On those 1/2 inch tabs. Bring the box back in. And so this flap is being adhered again to the top of the page. And this is also a good time because we did do 6 1/4, and that's what our page is to make sure we don't have anything hanging over, and I'm good there. Get my white piece of paper in underneath so I can have that contrast for my eyes. And it's 4 5/8, so that 4 5/8 does not sound right. Oh yes, because we had the 1/2 inch tab. Yes. So now we're at 4 1/8. Yes. Okay, I'm good. I was sitting here going 4 5/8. My page is only 4 1/4. See, now you get to hear me talk out loud to explain what I'm doing. So add adhesive to the outside of that 1/2 inch tab. And again, line it up, centering it side to side. Make sure you're not overhanging the top or the bottom of the page. In this case, it's the bottom of the page. But when you flip it this way, you're at the top of the page. Give it a good wipe if there's any glue. Burnish. And there we go. You know what, Tammy? I think we're right. And hi, nice of you to join us. I know how busy you are, so I think that's very nice of you to drop by and say hi. So the front of page 2, and that's all we have for the back of page 1, is just a flap that's going to come down like this. And so like when I was saying that if you got your grandma's old recipes on that Ireland Forever paper, oh, they'd look amazing. So the front of page 2 is a very simple belly band with 2 photo inserts. Oh, you've been here all along. Oh, see, I didn't see you come in. Now I'm nervous. No, not. So the front of page 2, and I didn't put the measurements on that little tab, so I'll tell you, it's 1 1/2 by 5 1/4. And what I did on the 5 1/4 side, when I had that along the top of my scoreboard, I scored at 1/2, and then I rotate it to the other side, and I scored to 1/2 again to make that belly band. And then my photo inserts that I round at the corners are 4 by 6. Just put those over to the side. We don't need to miter the belly band, the tabs on the belly band. Get the box back in here. It is a little awkward when you have to take the box out of the shot, bring the box back into the shot. My white piece of paper. And I believe I will be happy with something like there. So I'm just eyeballing it. You can decide where exactly you would like your belly band. You might want it over to one side to add some contrast. Actually, that's a really cute idea. Maybe that's what I'm going to do. You know what? It is what I'm going to do. I'm going to rogue myself. Not going to follow what I did in the first one. I'm going to offset my belly band just for something different. Now, in the original, my belly band is in the center. So keep that in mind. If you want your belly band in the center, make sure that's where you place it. I just need something just to make sure. I didn't have any glue, and I didn't, so I'm happy there. Give it another good burnish. And then your 2 photo mats will just slide in something like that. Oh, I like that. There you go. And that would be the front of page 2, moving right along to the back of page 2. So let's give it a good burnish. And on the back of page 2, we have 2 flaps. So let's move the box out of our way. We have 2 flaps, and again, I didn't write the measurements on my paper, so I'm going to refer to my written. So I have 2 pieces of cardstock, one that measures 4 1/8, so we now know that's the tick mark after the 4, by 5, and the second one measures, again, 4 1/8 by 3 3/4. Okay, so we'll have this one in the scoreboard with the 3 3/4 inches across the top of the scoreboard. I scored at 1/2. I rounded the corners. And the larger piece, again, it's got the 5 inches across the top. I scored at 1/2. So I'm going to fold on those score lines. And I am going to miter my 1/2 inch tabs. Stay in the shot. So I hope everybody's weather is going to be beautiful for the weekend. We were supposed to get some rain. Not sure if that's still in our forecast or not, but we could use rain around here. So I will not say I do not want it to rain. All right, so let me get the box back in. Now, in my original box, or my original album, the larger flap goes on the left-hand side, and the smaller flap goes on the right-hand side. And again, if you want to reverse that, that's completely your choice. Just adhesive on the 1/2 inch tab. And again, get my white piece of paper tucked in underneath here. And again, what I'm doing is the top, or in this case, the bottom of the page, I want my page even with that. I'm not really worried about this hangover on the other side, because by the time you have your pattern paper on, you won't even see that. And it'll just be a little peekaboo of the paper that's underneath, which I think is a lovely thought. Well, I just want rain. I don't want any storm. I don't want any wind. I don't want any hail. I just would like a little rain because we're pretty dry. And we've already had one, I guess I will call it a grass fire around us. It could have turned into something a lot worse if the fire department hadn't got on it right away. So I'm thankful for that. So again, I'm gluing my smaller flip or flap, whatever we want to call that, making sure it's nice and square here where the two meet, like so. And burnish. Like I say, the key to a nice album is burnishing. And so it opens to the left, pardon me, to the right, I should say, and to the left, like so. And like I did in the original album, if you are using the Forever Ireland paper, look in your stash and see what kind of old metal embellishments you have, because this paper lends itself to the embellishments. All right, so the front of page 3 is a small, shallow pocket, and it measures 1.5 by 7.25, and I just shaved a little hair off of it when I had it in the cutter. So for my score lines on the 1.5 inch side, let's turn it over so the score lines go in the right way. I scored it 1/2. Then I rotated it to the 7.25 inch side, less just a hair. And I scored it at 1/2 on one end. And then I flipped it completely around and I scored it at 1/2 on the other end. So now I'm going to fold on all those score lines. And like I say, this is just a little tuck spot. It's a narrow, shallow pocket. It's like 1 inch. Just going to hold our mats. Okay. And we're going to cut through the X. So when I make a pocket where my two score lines intersect, I always take my scissors and I cut right through that X, like so. Let's go back and do it on the other side. So there's the X where my two, there's the X where my two score lines intersect. And I just cut through the center of the X, making sure that I don't go into my pocket itself, because if you do, then you're going to have a hole. And well, if you have a hole, then you can just make it part of your project. Or if you're OCD like me, you might have to recut it. So I'm also going to miter the top of that 1/2 inch tab. So this is that 1/2 inch tab that are on either side. I'm just giving it a slight miter. And then burnish it again. And then I'll get the box and we'll bring it back into the shot. So this pocket is going to go down here at the bottom. Now, what you need to be careful about here is that this pocket isn't going to impede when you turn the page. So we're going to start with just a light little bit of glue. Well, not a light little bit. I'm going to add adhesive to the 1/2 inch tab. And then to start with, I'm just going to tack it. And what I mean by that is I'm just going to set it there, making sure left to right that we're centered. because remember, it's just a touch shorter. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my page and go, are you going to work? Yes, I'll be fine with that. Yes, there's going to be a little bulk because that's what happens when we add flips and flaps. Nice that you're back, Tanya. And then make sure now, as I move things around a little bit, if you watch any of my other tutorials, you know I like to put a little bit of cellophane tape across the bottom tab on any of my pockets so that my photo mats don't catch on it. That's just something I do. If you don't do that, that's okay too. So I'm now putting adhesive on those small little 1-inch tabs on either side. And we don't want a lot of, don't go overhand, don't be too heavy-handed with the glue because you don't want to seal your pocket shut. So give it a good burnish. Looks good. And then we had 2 photo mats that measure 4 by 6 1/4. And they just tuck right in there. And I always pull them back out just in case I have had any glue seep out. That's what we don't want to have happen. And there's the front of page 3. And now we're working on the back of page 3. And the back of page 3 is another flip, or flap, I should say, that's going to come down from the bottom of the page. So it's going to come up in this case. So let me move the album box. So the back of page 3 is a piece that measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And on the 4 1/4 inch side, we are going to score at 1/2. So we are going to burnish that score line. Bring our box back in. And again, like I said to you before, I kept my flips and flaps quite simple in this project just because I am notorious for bulking things up too much. And with the 1/2 inch tabs, that's not what I want it to do. Now, this particular flap is much smaller or slightly smaller than your actual page. So I'm centering it left to right. It's probably about 1/4 inch on either side. I'm not going to miter my 1/2 inch tab because it's not running to the edge of the page. Just have that in there will be helpful. Move this up. Oh, Tina, I'm so sorry that happened, that you couldn't find us. Well, the good thing is, Tina, it stays recorded. And this is part 2. Because I figure that if I'm on here for more than 2 hours, I've been on here too long. That's how I look at it. So let's burnish. And just make sure it didn't hang over, and it didn't. So now let's give it a really good burnish. Sometimes you have to refresh your screen with Facebook or refresh the page with Facebook. And then even it can be difficult to find things, as I've had that happen to me, Tina, looking for something and I can't find it, and it's frustrating. So we are moving on to the front of page 4. And the front of page 4, let me take this box out of the way. And I'm going to bring in the finished one just to kind of show you what's on the front of page 4 in this box. So page 4 is a small pocket that flips to the left. And it has 2 photo mats that sit in this pocket, like so. Okay, so that's what we are recreating. Isn't it soothing? Oh, I've never thought of that, Tanya. Am I soothing to listen to? Well, that's kind of nice to know. Okay, so what we need for this is we needed 2 pieces of cardstock. The first piece of cardstock measures, let's get it going the right way. It is 3 3/4 by 4 1/8. So that is the 1 mark tick just past the 4. The second piece of cardstock measures 3 3/4, because remember we wanted a little shorter, by, only when I'm not drinking wine. Good point, Tammy, good point. By 5 1/8, which is 1 past, which is, I never drink wine at retreats until I've done teaching my class. It's a standard line. By 5 1/8. And that is just sparkling water that I'm drinking right now. So on our piece that measured 4 1/8 by 3 3/4, with the 3 3/4 along the top, we scored at 1/2. And then to make the pocket, with the 5 1/8 along the top, score at 1/2, rotate to the other side, score at 1/2, turn to the 3 3/4 side and score at 1/2. So we are going to burnish on those score lines. So this is the flap that actually goes on the base page. I am going to miter the tabs. And I'm just going to do this because this is going to take us a little longer than some of the other things. And I don't want my glue to end up being plugged. And then we're going to burnish the score lines on the pocket itself. We are going to dry fit this just to make sure my measurements are correct. I did double check, but you know, you never know. And I'm happy. And when it folds down, yes. Okay, so on the pocket, remember I talked about the X. We are going to cut through our X to get rid of the bulk. I just want to be able to see what I'm doing. And then turn. And then miter the very top of the pocket on the 1/2 inch tab, like so. And we are going to place the pocket on the flap before we put it in the on the page, just because it's a little easier to work with it like this. So we're going to fold over that 1/2 inch tab, like so. Hi, Trisha. How are you today? We are going to add adhesive to our 1/2 inch tabs. Whoops, not that one. No, 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 no. Not that one first. The one along the bottom first. And I'll explain why I stopped myself. Maybe some of you already know. I want to add my cellophane tape, whatever you happen to call it. And you could use packing tape to do that. I just tend to reach for the cellophane because it's always sitting on my workstation. So what I did is I folded over the 1/2 inch tab, then I adhered my pocket. Okay, open. I'm just going to get some. I am just fine. It is a beautiful sunny day at my house. And yeah, it's good. Having a great time. And then we're going to add adhesive to the 1/2 inch tabs on the left and right side of the pocket. Except you don't want to do that. Get a bunch of it because it's a little bit too much. And then do it to the other side. That's better. Thanks, Tanya, for saying hello to all those that have just joined us. That's very kind of you. And yes, hello. Thank you for spending part of your Friday afternoon with me. And burnish. So, bring the album back in. Okay, so on my original album in the box, I put the pocket over here on the left-hand side. If you want it, you could also put it over here on the right-hand side, but I'm going to leave it to the left. So I'm adding adhesive to the front of that 1/2-inch tab. Again, what I'm concerned about is staying to the top of the page. That way I just feel that nothing gets in the way of turning the page. And I like the idea when my pattern paper just kind of peeks out from underneath something like this. And then we had 2 photo mats that are going in this pocket. So we'll just move the project. One measures at 4 by 4.5. Second one measures 4 by 5.5. And I rounded those corners, just like I rounded the corners on the top of the flat piece, I guess is how I want to say it. And the reason I did them different sizes, let me put one in first and then put the second one in, is I kind of liked, what's my problem here? Give me a second. Something is binding. Don't know what it is, but maybe my page is a little, we're going to shave just a slight edge off of this one. And that happens sometimes. That's why I always say to people, check each page of your book just to see, no, it needs a little bit more, just to see if you need to adjust something. I think I'm going to be, no, a little more. Don't want to take too much. So I'm shaving off about 1/8 of an inch is what it ended up being to make me happy. So I don't know why there must be a problem here. Let me, well, everything seems fine. The bigger one slides in no problem. I do not know. As I often say, because it can. There we go. So I'm just going to round these corners. And again, I'm using my 3/8 of an inch corner rounder. And when Tammy can get these, she does sell them in the store. There we go. I don't know what is binding it. It seems fine. But there is the front of page 4 completed. So I always tell people, double check your project. Don't rely on just the measurements that you're given, because each one will be made slightly different. All right, so we are now to the back of page 4, and the back of page 4 consists of 2 flaps. They both measure 3 3/4 by 4 3/4. And on the 4 3/4 inch side, I scored at 1/2 on each of them. So burnish the score lines, or fold and burnish the score lines. You could round your corners if you would like to. Again, that gets down to a preference. So what I did with these flaps is I took one, and over here on the left-hand side, I placed it about 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the left-hand side. And with the second one, I centered it top to bottom on the right-hand side. I didn't miter my corners because they're not going right to the edge. You certainly could miter if you wanted to, adding adhesive to that 1/2 inch tab. And like I said, about 1/4 of an inch, give or take. You could do more, you could do less. And I burnished. And I did put a decorative paper clip on this particular page in my project. It was just a decorative paper clip I had in my stash. I believe it was a Tim Holtz, one that I'd had forever. And I thought, geez, that looks nice there. Let's use it. And again, I'm centering it top to bottom. You don't need to. It's what you would like. You might like it all to one side. And again, that's another personal choice. And I just used the decorative clip. Just going to pull it out of here. I used the decorative clip just because I didn't want my flaps catching on anything. And I thought it looked really nice there. But I'm not going to leave it here for right now because we have more pages to decorate. Okay, so we've now made it to the center of the book. And we are just going to repeat the order of what we've already done. Only now we're going to do it backwards, do it in a descending order. I don't quite know how to say my words there that I want to say. So we are now on the front of page 6. And the front of page 6 consisted of that flap. So that's this page here with the flap. And it's going to go like so. And I've just noticed I did not round my corners. So let me just get my rounder out. And I'll tell you what the size of this is. So this piece of cardstock measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Make sure I'm finding it. Yes, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And on the 4 1/4 side, we score at 1/2. And then we're going to fold on the score line and burnish. We don't need to miter that 1/2 inch tab because it doesn't go to the edge of the page because I'm centering it left to right, like so. Add our adhesive. And again, like I say, I centered it left to right, making sure I didn't go over the top of the page. Burnish. And there's the front of page 5. Turn to the back of page 5. So the back of page 5 is our shallow pocket. And our shallow pocket measures 1 1/2 by 7 1/4, less just a sliver. And then on the 1 1/2 inch side, I scored at 1/2 rotate it to the 7 1/4 side, scored at 1/2, rotate it completely around, and scored at 1/2 again. And then we'll burnish on those score lines. And again. And it's just a little tuck spot for your photo mats. So we're going to cut through our X. Like so. And just miter the very top. Like so. And then burnish it all again, because that way it's going to lay flat. Oh, yes. Well, you stay safe, Sandy. I don't like those storms that come with lightning. So our little shallow pocket. And again, you have to remember the orientation of our book. I am putting my pocket right here because I want to keep everything. So I want to keep my photo mats on my page. You could, but then that's going to change the whole orientation. So then they would be sticking in like this, and I guess there's always the chance they could fall out. But just another thought as I'm standing here looking at my project. Again, I'm just adding adhesive to the 1/2 inch tab that's along the 7 or the 6 1/4 inch side now, because you've folded over those 1/2 inch tabs. I'm centering it side to side, making sure I'm not going over the edge of the page. Burnish. And we'll get some adhesive. So again, I'm using my cello tape. Burnish. And I'm adding adhesive to the small 1/2 inch tabs on the left and right side. And I'm going to fold them up and burnish. Burnish them well. Making sure we don't have any, nope, except in all the other places I've got glue right now. And then our 2 photo mats that are going in this pocket are 4 by 6. And like I say, they just tuck nicely into our pocket, like so. And you just get to see a little bit of the paper that's on the back of it. So let's move on to the front of page 7. Do you realize we're almost done this? Wow, we're making really good time here. I will stay within my 2-hour window. So this is the page that has the shorter flap on one side and the longer flap on the other side. Give you the measurements for the shorter flap. So it measures 3 3/4 by 4 1/8, and we all know what that means now. And then our second one measures 4 1/8 by 5. And on both of them, so on the smaller one, on the 3 3/4 inch side, I scored at 1/2. And on the larger flap, on the 5 inch side, I scored at 1/2. So we're going to burnish those score lines. miter or 1/2 inch tabs. Oops, stay in the shot. Get rid of my little pieces. Burnish the score lines again. Now, bring the box back in. No, I didn't use the entire package, Myrna. I had some sheets left over, and there will be another project coming. I just don't know what that's going to be at this point in time. But yes, one package will be enough to complete this and give you some extra pages that you can use for something else, for another project. When I did the original, remember I said we were repeating our flips and flaps? I put my short flap on my right side and my bigger flap on my left side. I am going to reverse this, and this time I'm going to put my short flap on the left-hand side and my larger flap on the right-hand side. Let's get my little... Oh, I think I told you. No, we're only on the front of page 6. That's okay. So we have 2 pages to go, but that's okay. They don't take long. Let's get adhesive on that 1/2 inch tab. Again, keeping it to the top of the page. If my head gets in the shot, I apologize. And remember, with this collection, let me get the sheet. This collection came with 24 sheets of 12 by 12 double-sided paper. So there is lots of paper in this collection. If Tammy's still out there, maybe she could tell me how many sheets of each design there were. I can't remember at this moment in time, or maybe Tanya knows that. I want to say 3, but then I don't want to say 3 if I'm wrong. So let's add the larger flap to the right-hand side, keeping it to the top of the page. Add the adhesive to the 1/2 inch tab. And Myrna, if you decided to use just the Ireland Forever paper to do your decorating, you would use more, because I did, let me get the finished project back in here. I did use some craft paper as my photo mats. So there is the front of page 6 done. I'm wondering, Tanya, if you could find out how many patterns. Well, I guess I could figure that out myself. So there's 8 patterns. So yeah, that would be 3 of each if I do my math correctly in my head. Yeah, because they're all down here along the bottom. So there's 8 of them. So that would be 24. So there's 3 of each pattern. Or design, I guess is what I should say. So the front of page 6 is going to go like that. And I'm just going to get the box that I finished so I can again show you. So when I was decorating, I chose to use some craft cardstock I had in my stash. This is not artisan because it's just layering cardstock. There you go. Tanya's double checked. And so that helped me extend my actual collection. So it would just depend on whether you were going to use all of the pattern paper to decorate with, or whether you were choosing to extend it with some plain craft. And I know that there is also a coordinating colors collection that matches the Ireland Forever paper I believe there's some in the store right now. Not 100% sure on that one, since I didn't look there this morning, which I probably should have. So on the back of page 6, we're doing that belly band again. And that belly band consists of that little strip that measured 1.5 by 5 1/4. And on the 5 1/4, we scored it 1/2 on both ends. And that's what I thought when I was doing it, Myrna, that if I broke it up a little bit with some solid pattern paper or solid cardstock, that's where pictures are going to go. You're not going to see, you're not going to see that. So I went, I'll use some coordinating cardstock. In my original project, I put my belly band in the middle, but because I offset my first belly band to the, I believe I did it to the left, this one I'm going to offset to the right. So I'm moving it in about, let me look back because I have to, about 1 inch. So something like that is what I'm going to do. You could put it in the center. Totally your preference. Got my adhesive on both 1/2 inch tabs. And I'm going to start here at the top. And it's about 1 inch in. Burnish. And fold it down and burnish. And our photo mats that we are putting under this belly band, they measure 4 by 6 and they slide nicely into place like so. And then we are on the front of page 7. And the front of page 7 is that flat that comes from the top of the page. So it measures, remember this was the odd measurement, measures 4 5/8, so that's the tick line just past the 1/2 inch. And it measures 6 1/4, less probably just a sliver. And then what we did is we scored on the 4 5/8 at 1/2. And then we're going to fold on our score line, burnish on our score line, get the box back in here. And remember, because we're going side to side, we want to make sure we don't have any overhang. And we don't. Move the white piece of paper for the lady that has eyesight issues. And like so. Oh, you want to miter our 1/2 inch tabs. Never forget that. And if you do, it's not a big deal. Just put your pattern paper over it. No one's going to notice. I'm sure Tammy, if she's still out there, is listening to that and going, oh, how far she has come. Now, I'm going to turn everything completely around because I feel like I'm working a long ways away from where I want to lay down my flap. So I've turned everything around, making sure that I'm nice and square, that I'm not hanging over the top. I'm not. You're still there. Can you believe that I just said that, Tammy? That if you don't miter, it's okay. And that is the front of page 7. going to flip it so it can work to the back of page 7. This is our last page. And that is the page that had a full flip to the left and a full flip to the right. So they measure 4 1/8 by 6 5/8. And then on the 6 5/8 side on both pieces, we scored at 1/2. And we are going to burnish those score lines, miter our 1/2-inch tabs. So fold on my score lines, miter my 1/2-inch tabs. See, what I'm doing is when I take it to my side, usually what I do is I miter all this stuff to the floor, and then I take my little vacuum and I vacuum it up. But I have to remember to stay in the shot for you guys, so like so. Burnish them again, because that makes them nice and crisp. We're putting them on the page. Bring our project back into the shot. And again, we are adhering one to the left-hand side of this last page and one to the right-hand side. I am keeping my flap to the edge, so the outer edge of my page. So not the hinge edge, the outer edge. Again, add some adhesive. And adhere. And again, like I said to you before, I don't mind seeing my pattern paper that is underneath peeking out. I just think it gives interest. It tells people where they want to go to look next. You might be able to cut it a little closer, but as I found in my original album, if I got too close to the hinge edge, I was having issues with the pages turning nicely. Again, to the outside edge on this right-hand side. And that is the nice thing about using the liquid glue for the construction, is it gives you a little wiggle room. Make sure everything is square. It is. Burnish. And burnish. Close. Move our paper. And that is the construction to our album in a box. So let's move it back to the beginning. Okay, might have to do a little trim because I noticed my page is catching just a little bit, and it could be from just as I was turning pages, I was being too heavy-handed as I was burnishing. So there we are. There's page 1, flip left and right. Page 2 is a flip up. Page 3 was a belly band with 2 photo mats in it. Page 4 is a left and right flip. Back of page 2, I should say, not page 4. Front of page 3 is 2 photo mats that now have a little bit of glue on them that I'll have to fix before I decorate them. Or I'll cut a new one if that's going to end up being like the original. Back of page 3 is a flip down. Front of page 4 is that pocket that flips to the left with 2 photo mats in it. Back of page 4 is the 3 by 4s that flip to the right and flip down to the bottom. This is where we started repeating. So our flip that goes up, our shallow pocket, our flip to the left and to the right, belly band that we put over on the right-hand side, which I really quite like that. The flip that goes up, and then our last page, which is the left and right. And that is the construction of our album in a box. So now all it needs is the decorating, and you call it good. And then, it's not with the magic of television. Sally would know exactly what I should be saying here. Here is our finished project with all the beautiful paper where it needs to be. So I hope you really enjoyed this project. Remember, there is a walkthrough where I went through and showed you how I decorated. There is a part 1 that's the construction of the box, and then this part 2 that is the pages and the hinge. Please feel free to message me if you've got an issue or need some help. Remember, if you're watching this over on YouTube, to make sure you like and subscribe to my channel. And I've enjoyed spending a couple of hours with you guys today. And we'll see you with my next project as soon as I've got it finished. Maybe even next week. I'm not sure, though. That it may not get done quite as quick as I think it's going to get done, but we'll do our best. So for now, I'm going to say thank you, Donna. Thank you, Myrna. So I hope you guys all have an amazing day. Get out there and see some sunshine, and I will see you on my next tutorial. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.